In this webinar, we're going to look at the effectiveness incentives available through Performance Plus. There are three effectiveness incentives: principal effectiveness, assistant principal effectiveness, and teacher effectiveness. All effectiveness incentives are based 50% on evaluation observation data and 50% on student achievement data. This is a requirement of the grant. All certified teachers and administrators assigned to a school, with the exception of those specifically noted under teacher effectiveness, are eligible for this incentive. And the first one we're going to look at is the principal effectiveness. Again, 50% is based on evaluation data and 50% is based on student achievement data. Under the 50% evaluation data portion, we actually use two different evaluation programs. PEPI is one, and the other one is the Vanderbilt Assessment of Leadership in Education. And both of these are paid out based on the score received by the administrator. The 50% student achievement data is actually based on the administrator school achieving the school culture incentive. This was decided because the school culture incentive includes student assessment data, but it also includes other areas that we felt were important. The total amount of this incentive is $5,000. The next one is the assistant principal effectiveness incentive. Again, it's 50% evaluation data and 50% student achievement data. PEPI is used as well for these administrators, and the payout is based on the score received by the administrator. The 50% student achievement data portion is based on the school-wide student achievement data, meaning that the school must meet those school-wide targets that are established. The total amount of the incentive is $2,000. And the last one is the teacher effectiveness incentive. A certified teacher serving in a position requiring the monitoring of students but not the delivery of instruction is not eligible for this incentive. This would include ISSP or alternative school or any other situation where the students are simply being monitored. And the teacher effectiveness incentive, again, is based 50% on evaluation observation data and 50% on student achievement data. The total amount of the incentive is $1,000. Now, we had to divide teachers by those teachers who could be tied individually to class data and those who could not. It was a requirement of the grant that where possible we tie individual teachers to student data. So for classroom teachers with data, meaning these teachers teach subjects that are covered under the current assessments that we do, 25% of their student achievement is class data and 25% is based on school-wide data. And then the other 50% is based on their evaluation observation data. School-wide data will be used for those teachers who can't be tied to an individual class. This would include specialty area teachers such as counselors, instructional coaches, PE, art, music teachers. It would also include those teachers who don't teach a subject currently tested under our assessments. So for those non-classroom teachers or classroom teachers without class data, 50% of their student achievement data is based on the school-wide data, meaning the school has to meet those school-wide targets. And the other 50% is based on evaluation or observation data. And for evaluation data, the system-adopted evaluation tool is used for the teacher effectiveness incentive. Each evaluation will consist of 2 unannounced 30-minute observations and the evaluation documents. And again, these are the district evaluation requirements. Performance Plus simply uses the scores. Evaluations will be conducted by administrators and an outside evaluation team. System administrators will conduct the classroom observations, and a contracted evaluation team will conduct the document evaluations. And then based on the final 6 domain scores assigned at the end of the year, this is not the individual component scores, but the final 6 based on the observations and the artifact evaluation, there will be 6 domain scores. For 100% of the incentive, the teacher must have even amounts of proficient and distinguished or more distinguished than proficient. For 75% of the incentive, the teacher must have mostly proficient with some distinguished. And for 50% of the incentive, all proficient, and the teacher may have 1 basic only if 1 distinguished is assigned. If the teacher receives a basic as one of those final 6 scores and does not have a distinguished to balance it out, or receives more than 1 basic or an unsatisfactory, then they do not get any portion of this incentive. For class student achievement data, again, this is for those teachers who can be tied to individual class data, meaning they teach subjects that are currently tested. And this year we actually have some additional ones due to the end-of-course assessments added by the state. So the grades and subjects that would be affected or would use class student achievement data are pre-K, 1st and 2nd grade reading, 4th through 8th grade reading and math, 5th and 7th grade science, 9th grade English, Algebra 1 and biology, and 10th grade English and geometry. For pre-K, we use LELA. Teachers will be paid based on the number of students achieving at least 80% on the final LELA evaluation. This was determined by our technical assistance team because there was not historical data on those individual students. For DIBELS and ARMT, a growth target will be established for each student using historical assessment data. The teacher must have a certain percentage of students meet or exceed their individual growth target in order to receive an incentive. The amount of growth or score predicted for a student is based on that student's ability and past history and has nothing to do with grade level or state expectation for attainment on the test. The goal is to determine whether the teacher or school is enabling that student to meet or exceed his or her expected amount of growth on a given assessment. So again, AYP, achieving benchmark for DIBELS, or achievement levels of ARMT are not used in this. For 9th and 10th grade end-of-course assessments, because again there's not historical data on these students, students will not have individual growth targets. Each student's target will be a passing score on the assessment. And then for individual teachers to be paid, they have to have a certain percentage of their students meeting or exceeding those individual growth targets. So if 100%, for 100% of the incentive, then 93 to 100% of the students must meet their individual goals. To receive 75% of the incentive, then 86 to 92% of the students must meet or exceed the goals. And for 50% of the incentive, 80 to 85% of the students must meet their individual targets. And if less than 80% reach those targets, then no incentive is paid. For school-wide student achievement data, again, that's for those teachers who cannot be tied to individual classes. So the school-wide targets for pre-K through 8th grade, it's that 75% of students must meet or exceed the individual growth targets. This is our year 2 target. Last year it was 70%, and it's a requirement of the grant that each year this target increases. For the grad exam, there are actually 2 targets. The schools must achieve one or the other. The school must achieve a 90% graduation rate, or 75% of the students taking the end-of-course test must achieve a passing score. So again, all of these incentives are based 50% on the evaluation data and 50% on student achievement data. And the requirement of the grant is that as we gradually increase the number of teachers who are tied to individual class data.